Good morning, Mark, and welcome again to another podcast. And did I just say morning?
You did say morning, but that's okay.
It's actually the afternoon.
It's afternoon.
So you can tell how we're going today. I've been watching too much tennis. That's my excuse.
That's your excuse.
That's right. Well, look, a great pleasure today to be at the Gordon TAFE in Geelong. And I'm fascinated by the fact that in my travels around mentoring private business clients and consulting to family companies, that I don't believe that TAFE get their fair, accolades for what they do in Australia, and in particularly I know that the Gordon down here in Geelong is doing fantastic work and covers so many topics that people, it's probably a best kept secret, and it is raising its profile, and we're really happy to be here today. So today I want to introduce Jana Perera, who is the Executive Director of Commercial Business at the TAFE. Welcome, Jana. Good to see you.
Thanks, Bill. Lovely to be here.
Good. So as I say, I'll just reiterate, it's our clients are small business clients or business owners, and we deliberately want to do this session today to raise the profile and raise the awareness of all the great work that's going on.
And it's interesting, Bill, as we were setting up, I said to Jana, I remember in my early days at FAGS, we put 10 people through a diploma of business management, I think it was called then, which was fantastic because it allowed the group to come together. They got lots of great knowledge. The facilitator was fantastic. And then there was a lull where that sort of disappeared for all sorts of reasons that are out of the TAFE's control. And Jana, I'm sure we'll touch on it, that there's some leadership training coming back in. And that's fantastic for small business rather than rushing off to universities, dealing with someone who's local that can tailor it to suit them. So that'll be really cool. Anyway, enough about Jana, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Now tell us, where did life begin? Where did you start? Where did you go to primary school?
Good question. So my background is Sri Lankan. So I was brought up in Sri Lanka, or born in Sri Lanka. But I also said that I was brought up in the Maldives. So I was about 6 or 7 when my mom decided to move to the Maldives. So the story begins that my dad, he's really a natural-born artist, and he worked in the ceramic industry. He studied in Japan and did a lot in ceramics. And he was approached by an American company setting up in China. When China just opened up into the world, free trade zone in Fujian. And he got this amazing opportunity to be an advisor to set up the factory. And I was about, 6 or 7. And he didn't want to leave. And my mom said, such an amazing opportunity. Off you go and do this. You're not going to get this opportunity again. And so he went off. And that didn't stop my mother. She decided to apply as an expat teacher and go to the Maldives. So I moved from Sri Lanka to the Maldives. And I was brought up in the Maldives. So I always say I was sort of an international student sort of all my life. I came back to Sri Lanka for my higher education, for high school really, and then came to Australia again as an international student. I did a Bachelor of Business and I did a Master of Advertising at RMIT. My childhood really was in the Maldives, a great place to grow up, island life. Mali was about 5 kilometres in radius. Yep. I still remember my friends, riding their bike, coming to the other end of the island to pick me up, and then we'll go back, and the school was in the middle. It really got me to understand different cultures and diversity. It was a 100% Muslim country, I think that's where my love for international education kind of began at a very young age.
So when did you leave the Maldives? When did you step away from there?
So step away, I came back to Sri Lanka to do my high school for about a year. And then once I completed that, I came to Australia to do my university studies.
And did you always wanted to get into education?
No, so that was another interesting story. So I think education is sort of in my blood. I've been very lucky, I think. I've had 2 very strong females in my life, my grandmother and my mother. So my grandmother was brought up in a very different generation. So when Sri Lanka was colonized by the British. So she studied in English medium, and when the British left, that's when my mother went to school, and so English kind of became a second language. But credit to my grandmother, she always felt that English was very important. And she knew the privileged kids would get the opportunity to go to schools where English would be still offered, like my mother. So she ran this tuition class on the side of the house for all these kids who couldn't get to a school where English was offered, because she felt that English was really important into the future. She would start early in the morning and she would run her classes till about 6 in the evening. She had 7 kids and us grandkids who would just walk into a house whenever we feel like it. She would be cooking up a, dinner, cooking up in the kitchen, doing all these things. But that tuition class is really important to her. And she didn't make any money out of it, really. It was just her way of giving back.
That's cool.
And that's where education started. And I saw that work ethic and how important it was. And just to see the kids where they ended up was amazing. They all got the opportunity to go overseas and do amazing things. And that was her little way of contributing. And then my mother became a teacher as well. She became an English teacher and kind of carried on that. Unfortunately, I don't think I got that, teaching gene from my parents. So I'm going to say I think it's more my dad's side for me. So education just kind of is in the blood. So while I was studying at university in Australia, one of my lecturers approached me and said, can you help out Central Queensland University with their marketing? And so I joined them in my last year to help them out with their marketing campaigns. And once I completed the program, they offered me a role. And so I kind of got into international education.
So first job was marketing?
Marketing, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
And recruitment of international students to Australia.
So, Jana, with that marketing degree, obviously that opened some doors for you. But what was your little pathway between then and now here at the Gordon in Geelong?
Yeah, so I worked in the higher education sector when I was in higher education in the university sector for quite some time. So I worked for Central Queensland University, La Trobe University and Victoria University. And that was sort of my introduction to TAFE from VU, because Victoria University has that dual sector. And so then I was sort of drawn into vocational education and the opportunities vocational education provides for students. So that was sort of my stepping stone, I suppose, for vocation. I haven't left since I've been introduced to vocational education, so I think that says a lot about this sector and the opportunities that we give our students to foster on, I think. Yeah.
As I said before, I think that TAFE, up until now, because governments are very much aware of the importance of TAFE, has been totally underestimated, particularly in the business area, and particularly in the area that Mark and I work in, which is with business owners.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, one of the solitary lessons for me was I was actually lecturing at what was Northern Melbourne TAFE.
Yes.
Which I think now is La Trobe Uni, and then I was lecturing in the Cert 4 in Business at Vic Uni.
Yep.
Now, the lesson out of that for me, particularly with at NMIT, was it was final year diploma of horticulture students.
Yep.
And I think it was their third year, it was their final year. But I ran a trial program that said that they had to also do a 1-year program that gave them a Cert 3 in business, small business. At the beginning of the year, there were 28 people in the class, and the key question was, well, what are you going to do at the end of this year? Because they had to pass this subject or this to get their diploma in horticulture. So I think 28 hands went up. At the end of the year, well, there's probably half the class left by then anyway, but who's going to start a business? 1 hand went up. So the lesson for me from that was, unless you understand the fundamentals of how to run a business, you need to actually take the steps to get there to be competent to do it.
Correct.
And as I understand it, the research indicates that most startups fail fairly quickly. And I believe in Germany now, you can't, or over time, you can't register a business until you've actually done a TAFE-type course in business. So that was really where I see the importance of it all. And I'd be interested in getting some answers from you on the boat, because I'll just step back a bit, Mark. Jana and I are both on the Geelong Excellence Business Awards as judges. And I'm sure that you made a number of observations about the businesses that you judged and visited. I guess, are there some business lessons and educational lessons and continuous learning lessons in what you saw in judging the business awards?
Absolutely, and that's a really good question, Bill. I think more around the startup phase to the scale-up stage. I think that's where we see a massive gap. I think the startup scale is where they're really excited. The passion comes through and they do this amazing work to make it happen. But then they get stuck there when it comes to scaling it up, and that's where you see, oh my God, you look at some of those business guys, these are amazing ideas. You should be doing so much more. But it's getting to that next stage. And I think there isn't enough, and like you're saying, enough training to get them to that next step. And that was one of my biggest observations. How do we get them easily? Where are the tools to help them to get there? Because these are amazing businesses that should be thriving, not just domestically, but also internationally.
It's we chatted as we were sitting here setting up and allaying your nerves. What's the Gordon's next step? You talked about a leadership program. Tell us a bit more. Tell us what's coming for us.
Absolutely. So at the moment we have our our training package sort of leadership program, which is our Diploma of Leadership and Management, which is one of the most popular programs. But we are also looking at setting up an executive leadership program. And, I think the universities have done really well in that executive leadership stage where they offer the MBA programs. But I feel like vocational is at a much better sort of place to offer an executive leadership program, because we always talk about, when you talk about vocational education, we say it's hands-on, it's practical, we give you the tools, you can take it to employment and use it the next day. And for me, that's what I see in an executive leadership program. A lot of the time we all get promoted because of what we do and how well we do it. But once you get to that leadership stage, it's not what you know. How do you manage the people? What is happening in the world? You need to understand all of these things. And that's what I think for me an executive leadership program is about. So the program that we have introduced, and we ran a pilot in Wyndham last year, was around how do you lead yourself? How do you manage yourself? How do you lead your team? How do you lead the organization? And finally, how do you lead and manage the community that you're serving for? So this leadership program is 6 months in length. It's very intensive, because we also know that when you're executives, we don't have a lot of time, but it is very relevant and very practical, and the tools, you can directly go and use it the next day at your workplace.
So they step out with a certificate or a diploma?
They do. So they get a certificate from the Gordon Executive Leadership Program from the Gordon Institute.
And at what sort of level?
So we're hoping to get it pathway to an MBA.
Cool. Okay.
So that they can get a couple of credits. At the moment, we are in discussions with universities.
Yeah, cool.
And once we get that signed, we can certainly advertise it.
Now, Jana, just in recent time, in fact last year, I guess we're over the last 2 years, you've done a leadership program in Geelong run by, it's a very well-known program, and it really is an executive leadership style thing, program. What did you get out of that personally?
A lot. I was new to Geelong. I started at the Gordon end of 2019, and my role was really to build relationship and engagement with industry and our community in Geelong, and that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to do the Committee for Geelong's leadership program. It really helped me build relationships in Geelong, get to know people here, but also to understand the community, the advocacy, and the influencing, and I think that's what's really important. When we developed our executive leadership program, we didn't want to compete with that program at all. It really is to complement each other. And I think the leadership program that Committee for Geelong offers is, how do you advocate? How do you work with community? How do you work with government? What does that look like? Whereas the executive leadership program that we offer is pretty much that executive day-to-day, how do you manage yourself?
Well, that's skills.
Yes, exactly.
That's a friend of ours, another Mark, has a great saying, you learn by doing.
Yes, and that's what TAFE's all about, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
When do you hope this is going to kick off?
So we've already kicked it off in Wyndham last year,
yep.
But we're going to hopefully we'll start mid-July, June, July in Geelong.
Excellent. That's really exciting.
Very exciting.
So what else is happening in TAFE land? What are other new things that you might be playing with?
For us, I think mainly, we got free TAFE, so that's absolutely wonderful. So that's an initiative by the Victorian government, but now also supported by the federal government. So this is to help get skills for jobs that is really needed in Australia. So that gives them the opportunity to study any of our TAFE programs free of charge. So there's over about 70 programs that's on offer. So I think this is a great time to come to TAFE and get a feel for it. And like you're saying, if you're starting a business, hey, why don't you try it? It's free. And I just wish that all kids would be given that pathway opportunity. I think a lot of the time we encourage, and I think we spoke about this before on going directly to university, it's a pathway through TAFE. There's no stopping them. They can still do a free TAFE program and pathway to a degree. And while you're in a degree, you can be working and paying off your HECS very quickly as well. So, this is an amazing opportunity that I think everyone should be looking at.
Well, there's a lot of publicity and talk, and a lot of it's real, in the shortage of skilled labour.
Yes.
And there's all sorts of, I guess, opinions about whether it's because of backpackers and all the rest of it. But in my personal opinion, my experience, I think it's because it's been business owners have neglected the training side of the business. And I don't know any business that I've been to when I've asked them about their budgets, for instance, that not one of them has a training budget or a personal development budget. And I think that is probably a good place to start, is how do you educate people. And the two of us have silver hair, so we can go back to when there was a part of, it was compulsory by government to spend a percentage of your income on training. Now, I don't think we'll get back to that, but it is a case of this current skills shortage. There's obviously a lag time now before it's going to be fixed. But if I walk down any shopping strip and I see signs, we want staff, but not just baristas. We want pastry cooks. We want this, we can't get welders. We can't get boiler makers and all these sorts of things. So we are going to have a lag. Now, how do you see that?
It's an interesting landscape, Bill, and especially I think after COVID. We were looking at the data as well because we are seeing a little bit of a decline in numbers coming through to TAFE directly. And I think that's because, like you said, the unemployment rate. I mean, the unemployment rate in Victoria is about 4%. And you look at Geelong, it's only 2.4%. So, industry is crying out for employees, so they're actually taking them without even being skilled. So I think it's going to change in the sense that we will have to go to the workforce and start training people. So we need to even flip the model that we are offering right now. And that's a conversation we're having internally. How do we look at blended learning and teaching now so that we can work with industry to meet their needs and their requirements? So it is an interesting landscape right now. It's not the 9-to-5 classroom anymore. And if you were to look at the silver lining in a way from COVID for us, I mean, we had a strategy where we said, look, we want to get online training. We have a strategy in the next 3 years. We'll have most of our programs online. But within a month, we had to change it. And I wasn't perfect, as we all know. COVID happened overnight, but it happened. Our programs went online. So there is that opportunity for us to now work with the industry. What do you want? Is it an evening class? Is it online? How do we help you? And these are some of the conversations that we are having now around how do we upskill this workforce in the workplace.
So what's your mix with online, face-to-face?
Look, majority is face-to-face for us. Only because again, we go back to that whole practical, hands-on piece, which I think is the beauty of TAFE. You walk into TAFE, and I'll take you on a tour if you have time, but you'll see how we have set it up. It is like the workplace. You walk in, it's a work shop, or it's the barista, or it's like a cafe. We give them that real employability skills from day one, and that's what's important for us. But if we can give them that theory piece online, that's where we're moving into. So while they're working, they can do the theory, come in intensive, hands-on experience.
So getting that blend's important, isn't it?
Correct, exactly.
You have a fairly well-known hospitality part of the TAFE. Can you tell us a bit about that?
It's very exciting. We're very proud of our hospitality school. So we did a massive refurbishment and we opened it in September last year. $23 million refurbishment, very exciting. So we have a restaurant as well. So hands-on experience. Davidson's, yes. Open to the public as well, which is very exciting, but also gives our students that experience from front house. Amazing commercial kitchens. We've got a social cafe that we're going to open up in a couple of months' time, and a new bakery that's coming up as well. So from a hospitality point, I think the Victorian government's investment on this was really important, especially for our region in Geelong, given that Great Ocean Road, and that's the capital of tourism here in Victoria. For us to have this site is just fantastic. I've just come from welcoming our international students as well. So we've got a whole lot of students who are coming in for commercial cookery and hospitality from around the world. So that shows the importance of this program.
And was that there was a drop-off, obviously, over COVID, so is that good to see the international students back?
So excited. I actually walked in and said, I'm going to keep saying excited, because I walked around and said, where are you from? And I had students saying, I'm from France, I'm from Philippines, I'm from India, like the whole continent of the world, all the continents in the world were represented, so I was very excited.
I'll give you a very small example. Mark, you know Packington Street very well. Well, down the other end from where I am, there's a mother and daughter have opened a pastry shop.
Right.
And they were doing the markets and everything else. And I went in there sort of the week they opened. And how you going and all the rest of it. In fact, I wanted to say, can we do a podcast? That's why I went in there, because I knew the background story. But there was a sign on the window and said, looking for a pastry chef. And the lady's daughter was telling me, Mum can't find someone to assist her. So she's in there on her own, God only knows how many hours, making all this stuff, and they can only make enough, and they run out 11 o'clock. And my first answer to her was, have you been to the Gordon? So I don't know what happened, but isn't that typical of, getting it what we call top of mind?
Yep.
The old marketing days, how do you get it top of mind?
Yep.
And
we
Gordon?
do, Bill. We get calls every single day for employees. And whenever we say you're from the Gordon, even if you go to a restaurant, they'll say, can you get some students? Because there is a massive need for hospitality and commercial cookery. So we are working with industry very closely. And a lot of them get work experience. They go in and they get employment at the end of the day. So that's where it's exciting for us, because that employability is there straight away.
So do you run an employment service? So if a business calls you and says, hey, I need a pastry chef, but I'm willing to take on an undergraduate?
Yes, so we have a separate department called Skills and Jobs and Skills Unit sort of thing. So what they do is they have a database. So anyone who wants employees, we get their information, put it on the database, and our student newsletter. Our students can go in and check what opportunities are available and apply for it. So that's definitely there.
Oh, that's really cool. Very important.
Now, tell us a bit about the skills, the trade skills side of the Gordon, because that also is a big component of what you do.
Yes, so that's massive. So that's based in our East Geelong campus. We've got we've got building and constructions, we've got carpentry to plumbing to bricklaying, landscaping, all of those programs, horticulture. So it's massive. I mean, we offer over 100 different programs at the Gordon, hence why it's always exciting, because you can go from hairdressing to bricklaying. Those programs are very popular. They're very much an apprentice model, so there's always an employer. So while they're working, they're actually studying as well. So they're like kind of block models, and we work very closely with industry, and making sure that they're employed while they're doing their program as well.
That's very good. So, digressing back to Jana as the person, have you picked up your dad's ceramic skills? Do you do some of... I'll just be interested to see where the creative side went with... As you said, you're more like your dad than your mum.
More like my dad in the sense of, I think, the leadership and the management side. Again, didn't get that creative gene, unfortunately. I'm drawing stick figures. But yeah, no, I didn't get the creative side. But I think it's more, I can have those conversations with my dad around this is what's happening. Because he worked in an office environment. And I think that's what I meant in that professional sort of level. But yeah, I love having conversations with him around all of that. But yeah, not the ceramics, unfortunately.
So what do you do to relax? What do you do to...
I love bushwalking, so that's my thing. I love walking. So before COVID, I used to be part of a bushwalking club in Melbourne and used to do a lot of bushwalks around Victoria.
Excellent.
Yes.
And you also made mention while we were setting up that you're on a couple of boards. So tell us a bit about what's your interests outside the Gordon in terms of giving back.
So, like I said, I think because I always introduce myself as being an international student all my life, I think that piece is really important for me. And I know what it's like being an international student, and hence why I wanted to go and welcome the students that arrived this morning, because you're leaving your family and friends behind to a brand new country. You don't know anyone. There's a lot of ups and downs, and it's always hard. I still remember when I came... phone call was the only way of communicating. We didn't have online mediums. We didn't have the apps that we can use today so easily, no FaceTime. And it was very expensive. So I used to remember waiting till Saturdays to give my parents a call.
And putting coins in the phone box.
And it was hard. I remember making notes, saying I might forget certain things. I was so close to my parents. And so for me, international education is important. And I think it's great having that diversity in Australia. I think it makes it very rich, what we have. So I am in the IEA board, which is the International Education Association. And so for me, that was part of giving back, really understanding how we can make this better for our international students who arrive in Australia. And also, it's from an economic point, it's great having international students, as we know, but we want to make sure that they have a great experience while they're here.
Fantastic. So, Jana, it's www.gordon-tafe?
www.gordon.edu.au
is the website to go to.
Correct.
For all the information you need about programs and the new programs coming, etc., etc.
And free TAFE.
And it's free. So, and that's probably a little underestimated in the sense that it means you could actually try something and think, nah, that's not for me. Let me try something that I really want to get into.
We like them to complete the program.
I guarantee you might, but it does give you a bit more flexibility.
Absolutely. And we do run a lot of information sessions because of that, because we
Yep.
don't want students to just
Jump
start and not complete. So for us, completion rates are important as well. So we usually run a lot of information sessions where they can come in, have a chat to a teacher or a trainer, find out if it's for them, and trial it and enroll in it. So we're
Fantastic.
definitely there to help them through that
Well,
journey.
Mark, my lesson out of all of that is if you're employing people, you're a business owner and you're employing people. Over the years, I've done a lot of interim CEO roles, 1 year, 2 years at a time. And I've made one promise at the beginning of it to the staff, because they're always apprehensive. What's he here for? He's going to close us down. Is that I will guarantee you continuous learning, and that you'll be better skilled at the end of this, and you'll get a better job somewhere else. And I used to send them off to TAFE and the Australian Institute of Management in those days.
Yep.
And it is. What if they leave? They'll leave and get a better job because they'll be better skilled.
Yep.
And that's the attitude business owners should take.
Absolutely, Bill. And one thing that we did find when we offered the executive leadership program in Wyndham, it was a beautiful group of about 15 individuals who took part in that program, and we had medium to small businesses represented in that group. And they actually came to us and said, we would love to do some training for our staff, because all of a sudden they realised what they were getting out of it. So this is where my team, so we've got the industry engagement team, they can actually go and have a chat to business owners and see where their staff are and where they want to get them to. And we can offer those gap skilling, reskilling opportunities for them. So they don't have to do a full program. It might be a couple of units. So we can actually tailor it to their needs. So we're very happy to do that.
I remember many years ago being told that education is an investment, not an expense. But unfortunately, when things get tough, education becomes a expense, and how can we savage it and cut it? So my big thing is it's not, it's an investment.
I agree. And I always say it's workforce development for productivity.
Yep.
That's what it is. Training is workforce development for productivity. That's what we're here for, to help their productivity.
So, Jana, thank you. Your passion is coming through loud and clear. So I really have enjoyed our chat. And Bill?
Yes, thank you, Jana. It's as Mark knows, I've been really keen to get this session up and running, because I'm a great believer in what you do personally and what the institution does. And it's been an absolute delight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.